Welcome back, Ronin Renegades. I am Lupine Fiasco. This is Daily FaB gameplay, and today's game is played against Rhinar, the Reckless Rampage. For anyone who is new to the channel, welcome to the Resistance. What we do here is review games that I have played on the Talishar client days or weeks ago, after enough time has passed, that I lose my bias and can judge my plays more objectively. I'll walk through lines as if I were playing them now while explaining my thought process behind the lines I take, and we compare that to what I did in the past to either learn from our mistakes or reinforce good play patterns. The reason to do this is to tighten and improve our play in the future, to take down paper events, and walk away with that shiny, shiny cardboard. With all that said, let's jump into our sideboard and our game plan. Today's game features my harmonized Kodachi list. If you would like to check that list out or try it on Talishar for yourself, you can find the deck link in the video description below. While you're down there, if you have not already done so, please consider subscribing to my channel. It is the best way to support me and to make sure you see daily FaB gameplay in your video feed 5 days a week. As an aside, you may notice that I am making updates to the list in anticipation of a post-Lexi world. I will be releasing a video next week about what I think that world looks like, what that world means for us, and why I have made the changes that I made. But for now, we are sticking with a pre-Lexi board. I wanted to share this game because I lost it. And any game that any of us lose is a great opportunity to improve. So we're going to pay a little more attention to my turn-by-turn decisions and see where I might have leaked a little damage, where I might have missed a little value, and how we could look to convert those mistakes into wins in the future. Having won the die roll, we will choose to go second. Rhinar, of course, with his Intimidate mechanic, has the opportunity to high roll us on turn 0 with a good barraging beatdown or multiple Intimidate turn, but he also has as much chance to not do that, and similar to Bravo or Azalea, the risk is worth the reward. If Rhinar does nothing meaningful, no Intimidate, no big damage, then we can block out with our cards from hand and take tempo on our turn. As far as sideboarding, I am going to choose to leave my equipment the same and plan to Kodachi Rhinar down, looking to get my Mask of Momentum triggers. It's possible that this is incorrect. We already plan to board Emberblade and Mask of the Pouncing Lynx against Levia, so it might be that we are supposed to do it against Rhinar as well and play more of a value-oriented game rather than an aggressive-oriented game. I'm not sure if that's correct. I do need to log more reps against Rhinar, but for this game, we are keeping Kodachi and Mask of Momentum. Flamescale Furnace is an additional 2 points of life compared to Fiendal's Spring Tunic. These games do go long enough that we could get multiple activations out of a Fiendal Spring Tunic, so it's worth considering. But again, I don't have enough experience in this matchup to know how I feel about that. I do know that Brute does not deal arcane damage, so our Spell Void and Arcane Barrier are useless in this game. As far as any changes to the 60, we are going to leave it alone. Rhinar does a good bit of arsenaling, so Command and Conquer might have value here, but not so much value that I want to deviate from my normal game plan, considering that I have very little experience against Brute. As far as boarding in defense reactions, we don't want to play Rhinar's game, we want to play our game. We don't want to be reactive, we want to be proactive with strong Art of War turns. The game plan going into Rhinar with this list, with its configuration, is to go aggressive. We can block if we think we would get more value out of playing defense, but we are on Mask of Momentum. We still want to be putting 6 chain links on the combat chain and force blocks out of Rhinar. He has Scowling Flesh Bag, he has Scabskin Leathers, he has Fiendal Spring Tunic, so there is a good amount of blocking that he can do. We just need to push through it. We need to get cards out of his hand and really limit his big turn potential. Yes, he has swing big. He has a number of 2-card 8s that his deck can produce, but we can do more damage than that. So if we can keep him blocking, eventually he'll run out of steam and we can roll over him. You know the sideboard, you know the game plan. Let's jump into the game and see where we can identify some small tweaks to make for the future. Our Phoenix Flame goes to discard and Rhinar is up first. Barraging Beatdown coming in. There is an opportunity here to pitch our blue to play Art of War. We banish a card from hand and draw into 2 new cards. That might let us block better, and it might be the thing to do, since we do get to draw up at the end of Rhinar's first turn. With the Barraging Beatdown effect, if Rhinar's hero ability triggers and we have to intimidate either our Rising Resentment or our Blaze Headlong, we cannot stop the additional damage from Barraging Beatdown. So thinking about it now, I believe that line is correct. It stinks to have to play a defensive Art of War on turn 0 and get not a ton of value out of it. But if we get unlucky here and lose our Rising Resentment or our Blaze Headlong to this Intimidate, we're going to take so much damage on turn 1. So I think that is the correct play. It isn't what I do here, of course. We do get intimidated and we get a bit of luck that we get to keep our 2 cards with block value, so the Barraging Beatdown damage doesn't go through. But we are going to take 6 more damage from these Mandible Claws. So we certainly could have been rolled higher on this turn 0, but starting the game at 32 health is a big downside. Drawing into a pretty nice hand here. We can go 5 links wide here, starting with our Mounting Anger, then throwing a Brand with Cinderclaw, Kodachi, Phoenix Flame, Kodachi. Likely to get armor or cards away from Rhinar, and ending our turn by sticking an Art of War in Arsenal. Talking about sequencing, it might be better to actually lead with a Kodachi, then play a Mounting Anger. This is something I've been thinking about a lot. My advice to you and my own approach to these turns has been that if I cannot produce 6 links on a combat chain, then I want to lead with my big breakpoint attacks that incentivize my opponent to block early, then force them to block again late. But I think that's worth revising a bit. And the reason I say that is, if we attack with this Mounting Anger, and Rhinar lets it hit, then we banish our Brand with Cinderclaw, and we follow with a Kodachi. The Kodachi is easy to block, and our Rhinar knows what's coming. So it almost makes our turn cycle more awkward to be dealing more damage, because we are then forced to delay our Brand with Cinderclaw in a way that we don't really want to. So I almost like attacking with Kodachi first, then playing the Mounting Anger. Either the Mounting Anger gets blocked and we still get to finish out our turn with Brand with Cinderclaw, Kodachi, Phoenix Flame to get another block out of Rhinar, or Rhinar lets the Mounting Anger hit. We banish our Brand with Cinderclaw, and now Rhinar has to give us multiple cards to stop a 4-power breakpoint. Either way, we leave our Art of War in Arsenal. I'm not excited to play a 4-card Art of War here, and if we are playing out our Mounting Anger and our Brand with Cinderclaw, then the only thing we could banish to the Art of War is Phoenix Flame, which is not something I want to do on turn 1. So if I'm playing through this line now, it is Kodachi, Mounting Anger, see what happens, then Brand with Cinderclaw, Kodachi, Phoenix Flame. That is not the line I take here. Let's see how I do finish out this turn cycle. It looks like I am attempting to play the Mounting Anger as the breakpoint. This is not incorrect, but I don't think it is right. I think it is the least viable option of everything that I suggested. We are still going to push 2 more points of damage in this turn cycle and arsenal our Art of War. We see that Rhinar blocks with a Command and Conquer, which is great news for us considering that we want to arsenal an Art of War. But Rhinar does follow it up with another Command and Conquer. This is not a situation that I find myself in very often, so I don't blame myself for missing this, but what we should do here is play the Art of War in response to the Command and Conquer. It is not optimal to do so, right? We pitch a brand with Cinderclaw, we banish a breaking point, we give our attacks +1 power, and we draw 2 cards. That lets us keep a 4-card hand, which, depending on how awkward it is, we could block this Command and Conquer, or we just take 6 damage and throw 4 cards at Rhinar. What we're going to do instead is block with the breaking point. Because we get no additional value from it, Rhinar does not have an arsenal, and to try and work breaking point into our turn cycle would just make it awkward. We have to pitch a brand to the Mounting Anger. We have 1 energy floating, so we could attack with a Kodachi. Then we need to pitch the second brand to attack with a second Kodachi and produce the energy to play our breaking point. But the breaking point doesn't have a target in the arsenal. It's just awkward. So we're blocking with it here, but that means that we are taking 3 points of damage. We're losing our Art of War, and we only get to throw 3 cards at Rhinar. I think that this is a bad line, and I would rather take 3 more points of damage to keep a 4th card in hand, or be able to more effectively block this Command and Conquer. Let's say that I banish this breaking point to the Art of War and draw into 2 3-block blues. I could throw one of them in front of the Command and Conquer, keep a 3-card hand, and also prevent an additional point of damage. Very infrequently do I find myself in this situation, so again, I'm not unhappy with myself for missing the line, but this is the sort of play that we can all take with us into our future games, and just know, if I can't protect this Art of War, let's play it out, because if nothing else, I get to fix my hand. Mounting Anger, double yellow brand with Cinderclaw, breaking point is a bad hand when Rhinar doesn't have an arsenal. So if nothing else, I get to craft a better hand for my next turn. Of course, we don't do that here, so we lose the Art of War, we take 3 points of damage. Now we throw brand with Cinderclaw, Kodachi, Mounting Anger, Phoenix Flame with a Shuko trigger. It is a fine amount of damage, and we are still going to get blocks from Rhinar, but still, it just isn't ideal. There's also a consideration here for throwing the Mounting Anger first, then following up with brand, Kodachi, brand. That is likely the correct line. If Rhinar does block this Mounting Anger, then he's forced to block a second time. I do think that that's correct. I think either way, Rhinar was not going to let this Mask of Momentum trigger, but that was better than the line we took. Rhinar here throwing a Pulping. Pulping discards a Sink Below, so the Pulping does not have Dominate. We could choose to block this for 6, then on our turn, probably attack with Kodachi, arsenal the Art of War, because Rhinar doesn't get the action point from Go Again. But we are going to take this, we're going to play out our 4-card Art of War, and just try to make something happen. We are running out of time in this game, and Rhinar still has plenty of equipment left to block. So we will start by pitching our blue to play our Art of War to banish a blue, keep our Salt the Wound, and see if we can make a big damage turn happen. Keeping in mind as well that Rhinar does have Scowling Fleshbag, so we are going to lose one of these cards. What I like doing here is starting with Kodachi. It gives Rhinar the opportunity to block with the Scab Skin Leathers, but it also means that if Rhinar wants to interrupt our turn with Scowling Fleshbag, he's losing defensive value by blocking a 1 power attack with a 2 power piece of armor. And we can follow the Kodachis up with either Ravenous Rabble or E-Strike, depending on how we feel this turn is going. I'm likely to follow it up with E-Strike, bottoming the Ravenous Rabble, so that I either get to finish the turn with a Salt the Wound or hopefully draw into another 0-cost attack, so that either way the Scowling Fleshbag does not interrupt my turn. It looks like that's what we're doing, at least starting with 1 Kodachi. Following up with the second. Okay, so it looks like me in the past had the same idea. E-Strike, bottoming Ravenous Rabble, and drawing a card. I like this line a lot. The E-Strike for 6 is going to take 2 cards out of Rhinar's hand, or the Scowling Fleshbag, and we are going to snap this E-Strike, of course. The Scowling Fleshbag banishes the Bittering Thorns, which is really, really good news for us. We're hoping to draw into another 0-cost card here. We do, but it's a Lava Burst. So we're going to play out the Salt the Wound. Salt the Wound has the same power here as Lava Burst would. They both get +3. So in a situation where your Lava Burst and your Salt the Wound both deal the same amount of damage, play out your Salt. It is easier to get damage from Lava Burst because you only need to trigger the Rupture. If your opponent blocks out your entire chain, then your Salt the Wound is not going to deal more than 2 damage regardless of how many attacks you threw that turn. Rhinar throwing Claw into 9 power Riled Up. After that, Blood Rush Bellows. Thinking about how we want to block this, I really like blocking with the front half of Flamescale Furnace just to make sure that we get our full value out of the block. We could block with a Snatch, knowing that a Lava Burst was banished to Intimidate, so we have 2 finishers in this hand and no Snapdragon Scalers. But we can do math here to figure out if keeping the Snatch to pitch is better than keeping it to block. If we block with our Snatch, then we have a hand of Brand with Cinderclaw, Blaze Headlong, Lava Burst with a Bittering Thorns in arsenal, which means that we are pitching Brand to play Bittering Thorns, follow that with Kodachi, follow that with Blaze Headlong, and end the turn with Lava Burst. So that is a 4, 6, 10, potential 15 damage in a turn, and we are blocking for 4 here. So let's say that's 19 points of value. If we instead keep the Snatch, then we can play Brand with Cinderclaw, pitch the Snatch to play Bittering Thorns, then play Blaze Headlong, activate FaB to pick up and play our Phoenix Flame, and end the turn with Lava Burst, which equates to 2, 6, 7, 11, 13, 18 points of damage. We get 1 more point of value by pitching our Snatch than blocking with it, so we are not going to block with it here. We're just going to block with the Flamescale Furnace and pass. Neither of these lines gets us an additional threat of Mask of Momentum. The most links that we can produce in a turn is 5, but we are still just looking to maximize damage here. We'll see if Bittering Thorns gets a block, and it looks like it does. Sink Below out of Arsenal to cover up the Bittering Thorns damage. Follow this with our Blaze Headlong, which gets another Sink Below. That's a little unfortunate. I would have preferred, of course, that Rhinar has to block with a 3-block and armor. We are still going to push some damage here. Phoenix Flame for 2. I'm choosing to play the Lava Burst, and I don't know if this is correct. We've seen 2 Command and Conquers from our Rhinar, and We are not getting a Shuko trigger on that Lava Burst, so it's possible that saving it was correct. I was feeling a little pressure, so I know why I threw it out. I think keeping it was correct, though of course we see that with this hand, keeping it would have been the wrong decision because this hand is atrocious. What an absolute stinker of a hand this is. What we really want to do here is block something with one of our 3 blocks, probably Salt the Wound. Then at the end of Rhinar's turn, we are going to pitch a Soul Bead Strike to pick up a Phoenix Flame. On our turn, we will play that Phoenix Flame for 0 with Go Again, then follow it with Kadachi Lava Burst for 6. That does present lethal, but Rhinar still has Tunic and Scabskin Leathers to block with. This was an absolute disaster of a hand for us. Rhinar rolling a 6 on the leathers is also pretty bad. We'll see if he can get value out of those 3 action points. I'm thinking not. And we do see, in fact, that he is only able to play out 2 actions, but that's still 11 points of damage, which is really, really good. We have the option here to block Swing Big for 8 and get a Quicken token, but we have nothing to do with the Quicken token. So we can block for 5 with all of our armor, go to 5, and that keeps us alive in the face of 2 Reckless Swings. But we're so far behind in this game. We do need to present lethal in some way, even if it just gets armor from Rhinar. Maybe he draws so poorly or gets so unlucky that we get a chance to take some tempo back. I like blocking here with Mask of Momentum and Flamescale Furnace. That puts us to 3. It keeps us alive from 1 Reckless Swing, kills us to 2, but that's just a chance we have to take. We keep our Shuko, we still present 8 damage on our turn, and we can block with our Shuko on the next turn if we need to. Instead, blocking with all of the armor, I think just panicking here. We're in a spiral. We're already so far behind, but there is no reason to block with Shuko here. We are going to pick up our Phoenix Flame. We will present our 7 points of damage and just pray that something breaks our way, but it is extremely unlikely. Rhinar even blocking the Kadachi, just getting his value because why not? Put him to 2. We draw okay, but of course Rhinar has the Bloodrush Bellows, which does hit. Claw is going to come in for 5, and we'll just scoop it up. Rhinar is scary. That was a lot of damage, and he's very consistent. I think we got a little unlucky that game. Rhinar having the Command and Conquer to hit our Arsenaled Art of War is a bad break for us. But at the same time, we played pretty poorly. We had 2 opportunities to get more value out of an Art of War, and we just didn't take them. Using it turn 0 would have blocked a bit better against the Wild Ride, and we would have drawn up at the end of Rhinar's turn. Playing it defensively on Rhinar's turn in the face of that Command and Conquer would have let us craft a better hand for our next turn, while also potentially getting more defensive value if we did choose to block. I think that really just set us up for failure. We saw some missequencing on later turns, and maybe if we had sequenced better, we could have got additional blocks from Rhinar. It's hard to say without knowing what is in the Rhinar's hand, without knowing how he wants to craft a turn. But at least on our side, we do know that we could have sequenced a bit better. We could have gotten better practice out of this game, which sets us up for better results in future games. I hope you learned something from this. I certainly did. Being put in that position to play more defensive Art of Wars is something that I need to really internalize. If you liked this game, if you learned something from it, or if you can also relate to getting smacked down by Blood Rush Bellows, head jab that like for me. My comments are always open if you have questions or feedback for me, and otherwise I will be back tomorrow with more daily FaB gameplay. Until then, take care.